Isekai animes. They are the cornerstone of anime culture nowadays. You just need to look at your seasonal animes and you will find at least 3 isekai animes in a slow season. But what makes an isekai anime? Well, of course, as the name implies, it means bringing someone from another world into a different one. Mostly to a fantasy world filled with swords and magic. You have seen this premise more than 100 times. A high school student hates his life, gets transported to another world and finds himself as an OP character with a harem. Sometimes you get a twist here and there, but it is mostly it. A typical shonen action fantasy anime with a sprinkle of isekai on the top so that the guy has common sense from Japan. But what if I told you that you don't need to make an edgy character that fights monsters every day in order to make an isekai? No action or harem, no need for flashy magic and evil demon lord. What if we destroy all these preconceptions and change completely the formula? Most probably you will have a boring story. I mean, just look at the drugstore in another world. But maybe, just maybe, you will find something amazing. Today, I want to talk about an anime that goes against all these preconceptions, in a story that on paper looks like the weakest and most boring story you could think of. But once you can see it, you cannot take your eyes off it. I'm talking about none other than Ascendance of a Bookworm. Now imagine this. A book-loving college student dies and gets reincarnated into a weak and small 5-year-old peasant girl called Mine, in a medieval type of world but with a few differences like residential buildings made out of wood and cities fully built and closed by walls where their residents almost never live. Literacy is non-existent and books are a rarity that is basically only available for nobles and priests. Now, her main goal is not to fight evil, but to print her own books in order to be able to read. Okay guys, where's the catch? Where is the evil god? When are we exploring the elf village? At what point does she learn to fly with magic and gets her harem full of hot guys? Well, later on she does get a bit of OP with magic, but nothing crazy. But that's mostly it. As I said, on paper this sounds really boring. You see, the reason why this story is so good, even though it doesn't follow the usual patterns of an isekai, is because how it develops its premise and of course its main character. You have this little girl set on a goal to create books but is too weak to even get out of her house, so she first starts with small creations like a hairpin or embroidery. As she gets older, she is able to go out a bit and she learns more about the world, gets to learn to read and write from one of her dad's friends, starts to make preparations to create paper, and whoops, let's rest for a bit because her powers are starting to appear. This is one of the slow burning stories. Every episode there is a bit of development, and you can constantly see the story moving forward as she develops skills or invents things that help her achieve her goal. Of course, it also has its bad points, like kids acting more mature than they should be, or adults listening to kids, even though from a normal perspective, what they are saying is a bit crazy. But overall, the story focuses on its strengths, and becomes a story that appeals to not only isekai lovers, but to the general public, with its story focusing on character building rather than the usual isekai action stories. Now let's talk a bit more in depth about the content. As of the making of this video, there are currently 3 seasons. The first season focuses on part 1 of the story that goes from volume 1 to 3, called Daughter of a Soldier, where she grows, learns about the world, starts preparations for her bookmaking, and creates a few inventions that are sold by Benno the merchant. The second season focuses on the first part of part 2, volumes 4 and 5, called The Apprentice Shrine Maiden, as she becomes a priest of the church and takes over different adversities such as taking over the orphanage and fighting a magical root. And we finally get to see what magic can really do in the world. And finally, Season 3 focuses on the second part of Part 2, Volumes 6 and 7, in which Mine improves her book printing and fights with a novel from another land. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Wow, 3 seasons already. We must be getting close to the ending of the story. Well, let me tell you that the author of this story is absolutely crazy. In the span of 7 years, she has published 29 freaking volumes. And with 3 more parts still to be animated, at this point we could be at anywhere between 10 to 15 more seasons. So worry not, There's still way more to come, and if you don't want to wait, you can always read the source material. I got to admit, even after watching all the seasons available and reading a bit of the light novels as well as the wiki pages, there are still things that I haven't fully understood yet, like the different statuses of the novels and how nobility works in general. The author created such a weird concept in which cities are completely dependent of their lords, but they are also isolated between each other. Or the magic system, in which only people with a type of magic rock can survive, which is usually reserved to nobility while peasants just die like a disease. Then you see them use magic using different incantations that sometimes require a wand and sometimes don't. It is clear that the author had something in mind when creating this vast world with so much world building. But it is my assumption that we won't get to see the benefits of this world building until we reach later parts of the story. And personally, I'm not in a rush, since we still have 22 volumes to go through for this story. I'm sure we will get a more detailed explanation here and there. This story has silly moments in the daily life of mine, added with some culture and learning points when explaining the different inventions made. But when the story really shines is in the drama, making Mine take decisions on her life that would affect her future, and how she takes them head on in order to fulfill her dream of a world full with books, but understanding the different powers that control her destiny, which are mainly the different social standings and, of course, the power of nobility. As I said before, isekais tend to focus mainly on boys getting transferred to another world to build a harem and forget that they are Japanese unless it's convenient for them. So it is refreshing to see a change in which a girl decides to build a better world without forgetting the scars she had from her past life and improving herself with the different choices she makes in her life, but never forgetting where she comes from. Which is something that we can't really say about most isekais nowadays. If you're tired from all these generic, made by the mold isekais that are thrown at you every season, I recommend you to give Ascendance of a Bookworm a try. Yes, it has a weird premise and there is almost no action, but after a few minutes, the characters will catch your attention, and after a few episodes, the world building and the story will make you stay all the way through the ride. I can say without any doubt that this is one of my favorite isekai animes, and if you give it a try, I know it will be one of yours too. And with that said, we come to the conclusion of this anime review. What did you guys thought of Ascendance of a Bookworm? Let me know in the comments below. Until then, see you guys next time.